In East Brayton, police patrols often blurred the line between protection and intimidation. When two officers stormed 13-year-old Amira Jackson's yard, they saw only a powerless black girl and her German shepherd. Their aggression quickly escalated. Shouts turned to threats. Then a single shot rang out, leaving Shadow dead on the grass. But with one trembling phone call, Amira sets something unstoppable in motion. The cops have no idea her father is the mayor, nor that his arrival will turn their reckless act into a citywide outcry. Justice demands to be heard. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The summer sun hung low in the sky, painting East Brayton's streets in warm golden light. 13-year-old Amira Jackson stood in her front yard, her braids swaying as she tossed a bright red ball for Shadow. The German shepherd's tail wagged with excitement as he chased after it, his paws thumping against the freshly cut grass. "Good boy, Shadow!" Amira called out, her voice filled with love. Shadow bounded back, dropping the ball at her feet and looking up with devoted brown eyes. She reached down to scratch behind his ears, and he leaned into her touch. The peaceful moment shattered as police sirens wailed in the distance. Shadow's ears perked up, but he stayed close to Amira, who didn't think much of it at first. This was normal in East Brayton. Police cars often patrolled their historically black neighborhood, but this time was different. Two police cruisers screeched to a halt in front of their house, tires squealing against the pavement. Officer Mark Danley jumped out first, his hand already on his gun holster. His partner followed, both approaching with aggressive stances. "Get that dog under control!" Danley shouted, his face twisted with unnecessary anger. "Now!" Amira's heart started racing. Shadow wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just standing beside her, confused by the sudden commotion. "He's not doing anything," she said, her voice shaking. "We're just playing fetch." "I said control that animal." Danley took 3 quick steps forward, drawing his weapon. Shadow moved slightly in front of Amira, not aggressive but protective, sensing her fear. Mrs. Thompson, their elderly neighbor, stepped onto her porch. "What's going on here?" she called out, her phone already recording. Other neighbors began emerging from their homes, drawn by the shouting. "Step away from the dog!" Danley's partner yelled, but his voice lacked the same hatred as Danley's. "We got a call about a dangerous animal." Amira's hands trembled as she gripped Shadow's collar, more to reassure herself than to control him. "He's not dangerous. He's my dog. We live here." She could feel Shadow's steady heartbeat against her leg, his presence usually comforting, but now filling her with dread as she watched Danley's finger tighten on the trigger. "Please," she begged, tears forming in her eyes. "He's not doing anything wrong." More phones appeared in windows and doorways, recording the scene. The evening air grew thick with tension as neighbors called out in protest. "Leave them alone! The dog isn't doing anything!" But Danley's face only grew harder, his prejudice visible in every line of his expression. Shadow shifted his weight, still protecting Amira, and that was all the excuse Danley needed. The gunshot cracked through the air like thunder. Shadow yelped, a sound that would haunt Amira's dreams forever. His body jerked, and warm blood sprayed across Amira's legs as he collapsed. "Shadow!" Amira's scream tore through the neighborhood, raw with horror and disbelief. She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands hovering over his body, afraid to touch and make it real. Shadow's eyes, still full of love and confusion, met hers one last time. His tail gave a final weak wag, and then he was gone. "No, no, no," Amira sobbed, finally touching his fur, still warm. "Shadow, please." The neighborhood erupted in chaos. People shouted in outrage, phones captured everything, and more police cars arrived with flashing lights that painted the scene in surreal bursts of red and blue. "Get away from the animal!" Danley shouted. But Amira couldn't move, wouldn't move. Her whole world had narrowed to Shadow's still form, her tears falling onto his fur, mixing with his blood on the grass she'd played on just moments ago. "Mrs. Thompson's voice cut through the chaos. "She's just a child. What have you done?" Other officers tried to establish a perimeter, pushing neighbors back, but phones kept recording. Danley stood with his gun still drawn, trying to look justified, but failing to hide the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes as he realized whose daughter he'd just traumatized. The red ball lay forgotten in the grass, a bright spot of color against the growing darkness. Shadow's leash dangled empty from Amira's pocket, swaying in the evening breeze. "Shadow," Amira whispered, her voice breaking as she stroked his fur. Her tears fell faster now, her body shaking with sobs. The warmth of the summer evening had turned cold, and the golden sunlight that had made everything beautiful just minutes ago now felt like a cruel spotlight on her pain. Neighbors pressed closer despite police warnings, their voices rising in anger and dismay. But for Amira, the world had gone silent except for her own heartbeat and the absence of shadows. She stayed there, kneeling in the grass, her hands buried in her best friend's fur, as the last moments of their peaceful evening turned into a nightmare that would change everything. The officers grabbed Amira's arms, yanking her away from Shadow's lifeless body. Their grip was harsh and uncaring as they pulled her backward across the grass, leaving dark streaks where her shoes dragged through Shadow's blood. "Let me go!" Amira screamed, twisting against their hold. "Shadow! Please, I need to stay with him." "Stop resisting!" one officer barked, tightening his grip until it hurt. "You need to calm down right now." But Amira couldn't calm down. Her whole body shook with sobs as they forced her arms behind her back. Through tear-blurred eyes, she could still see Shadow lying motionless in the grass, his fur matted with blood. The sight made her struggle harder. "She's just a child," Mrs. Thompson shouted from behind the line of officers keeping neighbors at bay. "You're hurting her." All around them, phones recorded every moment. Angry voices called out from porches and sidewalks, but the police ignored them, forming a barrier between the crowd and where they held Amira. Officer Danley stood back, his face a mask of false authority as he barked orders at the growing crowd. "Everyone needs to disperse. This is an official police matter." The words made Amira's stomach turn. They'd killed Shadow, and now they were acting like she was the problem. Her arms ached where the officers gripped them, but she managed to twist her right hand just enough to reach toward her pocket. "Stop moving," the officer holding her right arm commanded, but Amira had already grabbed her phone. Her fingers, slick with Shadow's blood and her own tears, fumbled with the screen as she hit her father's speed dial. The phone clicked on speaker just as an officer tried to snatch it away. Amira screamed into it, her voice raw with desperation. "Daddy, help me! They killed Shadow! The police shot him! They're hurting me!" "Amira?" Her father's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp with concern. "What's happening? Where are you? Give me that phone!" An officer reached for it, but Amira jerked away, crying harder. "We're at home! Officer Danley shot Shadow. He wasn't doing anything wrong. They're grabbing me and won't let me go." Her words tumbled out between sobs. "There's so much blood, Daddy. Shadow's dead." In the background, she could hear her father shouting orders, his voice tight with controlled fury. "I'm sending security right now. Keep your phone on. I'm coming, baby. Don't let them take your phone." The officers' grips loosened slightly at the mention of security, but they didn't let go. Uncertainty flickered across their faces as they looked at each other, then at Officer Danley, who had gone pale. Within minutes, black SUVs with city government plates squealed to a halt in front of the house. Professional security teams in suits poured out, followed by news vans and camera crews who had been monitoring the mayor's security channel. "Step back from the girl!" the head of security commanded, his voice carrying authority that made the officers hesitate. "Mayor's daughter! Stand down now!" Cameras swung toward the scene as reporters rushed forward, microphones extended. The evening news helicopter appeared overhead, its spotlight cutting through the growing darkness. What's happening here? Why was force used against a minor? Who gave the order to shoot the dog? The questions came rapid-fire as more media arrived. Officer Danley started backing toward his cruiser, but cameras followed his every move. Other officers shifted nervously, their earlier confidence evaporating under the media spotlight. Then another vehicle arrived, the mayor's official car. Elijah Jackson stepped out, his tall frame radiating controlled anger as he strode toward the scene. "I am Mayor Elijah Jackson," he announced, his voice carrying across the now silent yard. "And that is my daughter you're manhandling." The officers holding Amira immediately let go, stepping back as if burned. She stumbled forward, and her father caught her in his arms, pulling her close against his chest. His suit jacket absorbed her tears as she clung to him, her whole body trembling. "Daddy!" she choked out. "They killed him! They killed Shadow!" "I know, baby. I know." He stroked her hair gently, then looked up at the officers with steel in his eyes. Cameras pressed closer, capturing every word as he spoke. "What happened here today is unacceptable. My daughter was playing in her own yard with her dog. There will be consequences." Officer Danley tried to speak up. "Sir, we received a call about a dangerous—" "Save it for the investigation." Mayor Jackson cut him off, his voice sharp enough to make the officer flinch. He turned to face the cameras directly, keeping one arm protectively around Amira. "To everyone watching, I make this promise, not just as a father, but as your mayor. What happened here today will not be swept under the rug. There will be accountability. There will be justice." The police officers retreated to their cruisers, unable to maintain their earlier bravado as cameras followed their every move. Amira stayed pressed against her father's side, his presence finally helping her breathing steady, even as tears continued to fall. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, but it brought no warmth to the Jackson household. Amira sat at the breakfast table, pushing scrambled eggs around her plate without eating. The chair where Shadow usually lay at her feet felt painfully empty. Mayor Jackson watched his daughter from across the table, his coffee growing cold in his hands. Dark circles under his eyes revealed a sleepless night spent making calls and dealing with the aftermath. The morning news played quietly on the kitchen TV, showing clips from last night on repeat. "You need to try to eat something, sweetheart," he said gently. Amira set her fork down, her hand trembling slightly. "I keep seeing it happen," she whispered. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Officer Danley pointing his gun at Shadow. He didn't even warn us. Shadow was just standing there." Mayor Jackson reached across the table and took her hand. "I know, baby. What they did was wrong. So wrong." "His collar is still in the grass," Amira said, her voice breaking. "With his tags. I can see it from my window, but I can't go out there yet." "I'll have someone get it for you," her father promised, squeezing her hand. His phone buzzed again. It hadn't stopped since last night, but he ignored it. "The police are lying about what happened," Amira said suddenly, looking up with red-rimmed eyes. "I saw their statement on the news. They're saying Shadow was aggressive, that he lunged at Officer Danley. That's not true. Shadow was just standing beside me. He wasn't even barking." Mayor Jackson's jaw tightened. "I know. That's why I've demanded all body camera and dash cam footage from every officer present. The truth will be in those videos. As if on cue, his phone rang again. This time he checked the screen and answered immediately, putting it on speaker. "Chief Hollins, I've been waiting for your call." "Mayor Jackson." The police chief's voice was carefully neutral. "I'm calling about your request for footage from last night's incident." "Don't call it an incident," Amira burst out. "Call it what it was, murder." Mayor Jackson held up a hand to quiet her, though pride flickered in his eyes at her fierce words. "Go ahead, Chief." "There seems to be a technical issue," Chief Hollins continued smoothly. "Officer Danley's body camera apparently malfunctioned during the encounter, and the dash cam from the primary responding vehicle, well, the file appears to be corrupted." "Corrupted?" Mayor Jackson's voice was dangerously quiet. "And exactly how did both cameras fail at the exact same moment?" "These things happen, Mayor. Equipment failures are not uncommon." "Don't insult my intelligence, Robert," Mayor Jackson cut him off. "I want all footage from every officer on scene. Every angle, every second." "Of course," Chief Hollins replied, "but I should mention, we've received several complaints about that dog's aggressive behavior in the past. Multiple neighbors have reported feeling threatened." "That's a lie!" Amira shouted, jumping to her feet. "Shadow never hurt anyone. Everyone in the neighborhood loved him." "Young lady," Chief Hollins' tone grew stern, "I understand you're upset, but the facts show—" "The facts?" Mayor Jackson's voice rose. "The facts are that your officer shot a family pet in front of a child without provocation. The facts are that dozens of witnesses and cell phone videos show exactly what happened. And now you're telling me the official police footage has mysteriously vanished? Mayor, I would advise you to consider the broader implications here. The department's reputation. The department's reputation? Mayor Jackson stood up, pacing the kitchen. Your officer killed my daughter's dog in our front yard, and you're worried about reputation? Sir, these situations are complex. Perhaps we could discuss this privately. Find a way to handle this that benefits everyone. We're done here, Mayor Jackson said flatly. Expect formal requests for all footage and documentation within the hour. And, Chief, if anything else mysteriously disappears, I'll have state investigators in your office by sunset. He hung up, his hand clenching around the phone. Amira watched him, tears sliding down her cheeks. They're going to cover it up, aren't they? She asked quietly. Just like they always do. Mayor Jackson crossed to her side, kneeling down to look her in the eyes. Listen to me, Amira. They're trying to hide the truth, yes. They're going to make excuses and lose evidence and spread lies about Shadow. That's what corrupt people do when they're scared. But why? Amira's voice cracked. Why did they have to kill him? Why are they lying? Because some people abuse their power, he said softly. They think their badge gives them the right to hurt others without consequences. They're used to getting away with it. It's not fair, Amira whispered. No, it's not, her father agreed. He took both her hands in his. But I promise you this. We will not let them bury the truth. We have the videos from the neighbors. We have witnesses. Most importantly, we have you. Your voice, your strength, your truth. And I will not rest until everyone knows what really happened to Shadow. At Brayton Middle School, Amira stood in the crowded cafeteria during lunch period, her voice shaking but determined as she addressed her classmates. Dozens of students gathered around her table, many holding handmade posters with Shadow's picture. The vigil will be tonight at sunset, she explained, handing out small electric candles. We'll meet on the football field. It's not just for Shadow. It's for every pet, every family that's been hurt by police violence in our neighborhood. Her best friend Maria helped distribute flyers showing Shadow's smiling face. Everyone loved Shadow, Maria told the group. He used to wait with us at the bus stop every morning, remember? Students nodded, sharing their own memories. He let me pet him when I was scared on the first day of school. A sixth grader added quietly. My mom saw the whole thing, another student said. She recorded it on her phone. Officer Danley didn't even give a warning. The cafeteria buzzed with angry whispers and plans for the vigil. Some students were already wearing black ribbons Amira had made, but not everyone supported her. At a far table, she noticed a group of students watching with disapproving faces, including the daughter of another police officer. The lunch bell rang, but before Amira could gather her things, Vice Principal Matthews appeared at her table. His face was stern. Miss Jackson, come with me, he ordered. Now. In his office, Amira found herself facing not just the vice principal, but also the principal, Dr. Carter, and the school resource officer. Her heart pounded, but she sat up straight, just like her father always did at difficult meetings. This unauthorized gathering needs to stop immediately, Dr. Carter said, shuffling through the vigil flyers. You're creating a hostile environment and disrupting school operations. It's just a peaceful vigil, Amira protested. We have a right to gather and remember Shadow. You're inciting division, Vice Principal Matthews cut in. Turning students against law enforcement, spreading anti-police sentiment. I'm spreading the truth, Amira's voice rose. Officer Danley killed my dog for no reason. There's video evidence. That's enough, Doctor. Carter slapped her hand on the desk. This is exactly the kind of inflammatory rhetoric we're talking about. You're suspended. Effective immediately. What? Amira stood up, shocked. You can't suspend me for organizing a memorial. We can, and we are, Dr. Carter said firmly. 3 days suspension for disrupting school operations and creating a hostile environment. Officer Brooks will escort you to clean out your locker. Across town at City Hall, Mayor Jackson sat in his office, facing down 3 angry city council members. Councilman Richards paced in front of his desk. This has to end, Elijah, Richards insisted. The police union is threatening action. Donors are pulling support. You're going to destroy everything we've built. Everything we've built? Mayor Jackson repeated quietly. You mean the system that lets officers shoot family pets without consequences? Councilwoman Martinez leaned forward. Be reasonable. It was unfortunate, yes, but pushing this issue is political suicide. Think about your re-election. Think about your daughter's future, Councilman Peters added. You really want her labeled as the girl who started a war with the police department? Over a dog? Mayor Jackson's phone buzzed. A text from Amira. They suspended me. Can you come get me? He stood up slowly, his hands flat on his desk. Get out. Excuse me? Richards stopped pacing. Get out of my office. Mayor Jackson's voice was steel. All of you. And let me be very clear. If you ever use my daughter to threaten me again, you'll regret it. You're making a mistake, Martinez warned, standing. The council votes on your initiatives next week. Your reform proposals, the community center funding, all of it. Don't throw away your agenda over this. My agenda? Mayor Jackson laughed bitterly. My agenda is justice. My agenda is making sure no other child watches their pet die in their front yard. Now get out. Later that evening, Amira sat on their living room couch, still in her school clothes, tears dried on her cheeks. Mayor Jackson joined her, setting down 2 mugs of hot chocolate. They're saying I'm causing trouble, Amira said softly, that I'm making the school look bad. But all I wanted was to remember Shadow. You're not causing trouble, her father assured her. You're standing up for what's right. There's a difference. But they're threatening you too, aren't they? I heard you on the phone. She looked up at him. They want you to stop fighting for Shadow. Mayor Jackson sighed, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. They think everyone has a price, that we'll give up if they threaten our comfort, our reputation, my position. Will we? Amira's voice was small. No, he said firmly. Some things matter more than politics, more than power, more than staying comfortable. He squeezed her shoulder. Truth matters. Justice matters. Standing up for what's right matters, even if it costs you everything. Especially then, he said, because if we let them bury this truth, if we let them pretend it didn't happen, we're telling them it's okay, that they can keep hurting people, keep lying, keep covering it up. The streetlights cast long shadows across Mayor Jackson's desk as he waited in his darkened office. It was well past normal hours at City Hall, but tonight's meeting couldn't happen in daylight. At exactly 9 p.m., a sharp knock echoed through the empty corridor. "Come in," he called softly. Jada Cross entered, her press badge from 5 years ago still hanging defiantly around her neck. She looked exactly as he remembered. Determined eyes, natural hair pulled back tight, and a laptop bag that had seen better days. "Mayor Jackson," she said, remaining standing, "didn't expect to ever be invited back into this building. Please, sit." He gestured to the chair across from him. "And it's just Elijah tonight. No titles." Jada sat, but her posture remained guarded. "I saw the videos of what happened to your daughter's dog. Typical Brayton PD. Shoot first, destroy evidence later. That's why I called you." Mayor Jackson leaned forward. "You tried to expose them 5 years ago. They buried your story and got you fired." "They did more than that." Jada's voice was bitter. "They blacklisted me from every major outlet in Texas, labeled me a conspiracy theorist, destroyed my career because I dared to question the thin blue line. But you kept everything, didn't you?" Mayor Jackson's eyes met hers. "All the evidence, all the connections you uncovered?" A slight smile crossed Jada's face. "Every last bite. Been waiting for the right moment, the right ally." She opened her laptop. "Officer Danley? He's just the tip of the iceberg. The corruption goes all the way to the top." For the next hour, Jada showed him files, photos, and documents. Evidence of police brutality covered up, missing evidence, suspicious deaths labeled accidents, and money flowing through shell companies connected to department leadership. "This is bigger than Shadow," Jada explained, pulling up more files. "They've been terrorizing East Brayton for years, but they finally messed up. They hurt the mayor's daughter in broad daylight, with witnesses and videos. They can't bury this one so easily." "I need your help," Mayor Jackson admitted, "but I have to warn you. They'll come after you again. They'll try to discredit you, maybe worse." Jada laughed darkly. "Let them try. I've spent 5 years building an airtight case. This time, I'm ready for them." She closed her laptop. "But we need to be smart, strategic. We need to control the narrative before they do." "My daughter's already working on that." Mayor Jackson smiled slightly. "She wants to start a video blog. Tell her story directly to the public." "Smart girl," Jada nodded approvingly. "The youth listen to their own, but she'll need protection. They'll try to silence her too." "I know." His face darkened. "They already suspended her from school." "Then we work fast." Jada stood, extending her hand. "I'll start digging deeper into Danley's history. You keep the political pressure on, and let your daughter tell her truth. Between the three of us, we'll crack this wide open." Back at the Jackson home, Amira sat cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by art supplies. She carefully finished the logo for her vlog, a black-and-white sketch of Shadow with the words, "Shadow's Justice," in bold letters beneath. Her phone was propped up on a stack of books, ready to record. She took a deep breath, checking her appearance one last time. Her natural hair was styled perfectly, and she wore Shadow's collar around her wrist like a bracelet. The wall behind her displayed photos of Shadow, playing in the yard, sleeping on the couch, sitting proudly in his graduation bandana from puppy training class. "Ready," she whispered to herself, pressing record. "Hi, I'm Amira Jackson, and this is Shadow's Justice. 5 days ago, my best friend was murdered by police in our front yard. His name was Shadow, and he was the gentlest German shepherd you'd ever meet." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, sharing memories of Shadow, how he'd wait with her at the bus stop, how he'd bring her toys when she was sad, how he'd learned to give high fives to everyone he met. "Officer Danley didn't see that Shadow, though," she continued. "He saw what he wanted to see. A threat. A reason to pull his gun. He didn't warn us. Didn't give Shadow a chance. Didn't care that he was killing a child's pet in front of her eyes." She held up her phone, showing the videos her neighbors had taken. "They say his body camera wasn't working. They say another officer's dashcam footage disappeared. They say Shadow was dangerous. But we have the truth right here, and I'm not going to let them bury it." Amira's hands shook slightly, but her voice remained clear. "This channel isn't just about Shadow. It's about every pet, every person who's been hurt by police who abuse their power. It's about standing up and saying no more. No more cover-ups. No more lies. No more killing innocent beings because of fear or hate." She touched Shadow's collar on her wrist. "I'm 13 years old. They think they can silence me. They already suspended me from school for organizing a vigil. But I'm not going anywhere. Shadow's justice starts now." After reviewing the footage, Amira carefully edited it, adding photos and clips. Her finger hovered over the post button as midnight approached. Fear and determination battled in her chest. Finally, she pressed down firmly, watching as her first video uploaded to the world. Sunlight streamed through Amira's window as her phone buzzed non-stop. She grabbed it, still groggy from staying up late posting her video. Her eyes widened at the notification count. "Dad!" she called out, running downstairs in her pajamas. "Dad, look at this!" Mayor Jackson was already at the kitchen table, coffee in one hand, tablet in the other. "I see it, baby. Your video hit a nerve." The numbers were staggering. Over 100,000 views overnight. Thousands of comments. Shadow's justice was trending locally on social media. People were sharing their own stories of police encounters, posting photos of their pets, demanding answers from the Brayton Police Department. "Listen to this comment," Amira read from her phone. "My brother's dog was shot by police last year in Houston. They said he was aggressive too. Thank you for speaking up. There are hundreds like this, Dad." Mayor Jackson nodded grimly. "The police chief wants an emergency meeting. Says we're inflaming tensions in the community." "Good," Amira said firmly. "Maybe now they'll listen." Outside, news vans lined their street. Reporters called out questions as Mayor Jackson left for City Hall. He paused at his car, turning to face the cameras. "My daughter spoke her truth last night," he declared. "As her father, I'm proud of her courage. As your mayor, I promise complete transparency in this investigation. The people of Brayton deserve nothing less." Across town, Jada Cross sat in her small apartment, surrounded by stacks of files and multiple computer screens. She hadn't slept, fueled by coffee and determination. Officer Danley's personnel file was a maze of redactions and missing documents, but Jada had spent years building contacts inside the department. Her phone buzzed, a text from a clerk in records. "Check incident report. Under 2D847, June 2019. Similar dog shooting, East Brayton. Footage lost, then, too." Jada's fingers flew across her keyboard. The incident had been buried, the complaint marked unsubstantiated, like so many others. But the victim's description matched Danley's pattern perfectly. Her doorbell rang. A manila envelope sat on her welcome mat. No sender listed. Inside were copies of 9 internal affairs complaints against Danley, all mysteriously resolved with no disciplinary action. Excessive force, racial profiling, evidence tampering. "Got you," Jada whispered, scanning the documents. By midday, Brayton was a city divided. Blue Lives Matter supporters gathered outside police headquarters, waving flags and demanding Mayor Jackson's resignation. Across town, a larger crowd assembled in East Brayton, carrying signs with Shadow's photo and chanting, "No justice, no peace." Amira posted a second video addressing the growing tension. "This isn't about taking sides," she explained. "This is about right and wrong, about truth and lies, about power and how it's used. Shadow didn't see color. He loved everyone. We should learn from him." The video quickly surpassed her first one. National news outlets picked up the story. Justice for Shadow trended nationwide. Mayor Jackson faced the city council, standing firm despite their demands to control the situation. "My daughter has a constitutional right to speak," he reminded them. "And I have a duty to investigate serious allegations of misconduct in our police department." "You're committing political suicide," Councilman Weber warned. "The police union will bury you." "Then I'll be buried standing up for what's right," Mayor Jackson replied. Back in her makeshift office, Jada followed a trail of financial records. Officer Danley's name kept connecting to suspicious overtime payments, all approved by the same superior. The pattern stretched back years, involving multiple officers. She cross-referenced the dates with incident reports. Every time a complaint was filed against Danley, large overtime payments followed. Money to stay quiet. Money to make evidence disappear. As evening fell, Jada discovered something that made her breath catch. Danley's personnel file had been altered recently, just hours after Shadow's shooting. Someone high up in the department had accessed and modified records. She traced the digital signature. It led straight to internal affairs and higher. Her hands shaking with excitement, Jada dialed Mayor Jackson's private number. "Mayor," she said when he answered, "I've got it. The whole corrupt system, how they cover up complaints, who's involved, where the money goes, everything. Are you sure?" His voice was tense. "We need this to be airtight." "Trust me," Jada replied, looking at her screens full of evidence. "By morning, I'll have enough to shake this department to its foundation. They won't be able to bury this one." The sun hadn't risen when Jada's phone buzzed at 5:47 a.m. An unknown number. She almost ignored it. But something made her answer. "Ms. Cross?" The male voice was barely above a whisper. "This is Officer Luis Mendez from Brayton PD. I have something you need to see." Jada sat up straight in her chair, instantly alert. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Can we meet? Somewhere public but quiet?" His voice trembled slightly. "I've been following your work. The stories about Shadow, they're not telling the truth." "Cooper Park," Jada suggested. "By the East Fountain. 6:30? I'll be there." "Please, come alone." The early morning air was crisp as Jada walked through Cooper Park. Few people were around, just a couple of joggers and an elderly man walking his dog. She spotted Officer Mendez easily, sitting on a bench in civilian clothes, hands clasped tightly in his lap. "Thank you for coming," he said as she sat beside him. His eyes darted around nervously. "What I'm about to show you, it could cost me everything." "I protect my sources," Jada assured him. "Always have." Luis pulled out a small USB drive. "I keep personal backups of all my body cam footage. Department policy says we're not supposed to, but after seeing things..." He swallowed hard. "I was there that day, Ms. Cross. When Shadow was killed. My camera caught everything." Jada's heart raced as she took the drive. The department claimed all footage was lost. "They lie." Luis's voice hardened. "They've been lying for years. That footage shows exactly what happened. Shadow never attacked anyone. Danley..." He looked down. Danley was laughing afterward. Said it would teach that uppity family a lesson. "Why come forward now?" "Because I can't sleep anymore." Luis rubbed his face. Every night I see that girl's face, hear her screams. I became a cop to help people, not—" He trailed off. There's more on that drive. Conversations in the locker room, meetings where they planned how to cover it up, evidence room footage of them tampering with records. Jada carefully tucked the drive into her jacket pocket. This is incredibly brave of you. I'm not brave. Luis shook his head. I'm terrified. But that girl, Amira, she's braver than all of us. Standing up, telling the truth. Maybe it's time we all did the same. They parted ways carefully, leaving separately. Jada drove straight to her office, hands shaking as she plugged in the drive. The footage was crystal clear. Shadow, wagging his tail. Amira throwing a ball. Then Danley's aggressive approach, gun already drawn. No warning, no threat, just the sudden crack of the shot. And afterward, the officers huddled together, Danley's voice clear. These people need to learn their place. One dead mutt at a time. Jada called Mayor Jackson immediately. Within 20 minutes, he arrived at her office, watching the footage with tears in his eyes. My baby girl, he whispered. She told the truth. Every word. There's hours more, Jada said. Meetings where they planned the cover-up. Danley bragging about other incidents. The whole corrupt system exposed. Mayor Jackson gripped the edge of her desk. This changes everything. They can't deny this. We need to protect Officer Mendez, Jada insisted. Once this gets out, I'll make some calls. The mayor nodded. Federal witness protection if necessary. He's risking everything to do the right thing. They spent the next hour reviewing more footage, documenting everything. Evidence that would shake the department to its core. Justice for Shadow, for Amira, for every victim of police corruption in Brayton. Across town, Luis Mendez pulled into his driveway, exhausted but somehow lighter. For the first time in weeks, he felt clean. The truth was out. Whatever happened next, he'd done the right thing. He didn't notice the unmarked police car parked 3 houses down, or the 2 officers inside watching his every move through binoculars. He didn't see them take photos as he entered his house, or hear them radio back to headquarters. Target is home, proceeding as discussed. Luis made coffee, checked his email, tried to act normal, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He kept thinking about the footage, about Amira's courage, about years of silence finally broken. Looking out his kitchen window at the rising sun, he whispered a quiet prayer for protection, unaware that dark forces were already moving against him. Mayor Jackson's phone rang at 4:38 a.m. His heart dropped when he saw the police chief's number. Mr. Mayor? Chief Roberts' voice was oddly formal. There's been an incident. Officer Luis Mendez was found deceased in his home about an hour ago. Initial evidence suggests suicide. The mayor's hands went cold. Suicide? That's impossible. A note was found. Roberts cut in. He'd been struggling with depression, apparently. Very tragic. Elijah knew it was a lie. He'd seen Luis just yesterday, a man determined to expose the truth, not end his life. He hung up without responding and immediately called Jada. No answer. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check the morning news. Turning on the TV, his stomach churned. Breaking news banner. Local journalist arrested for cybercrimes. The footage showed Jada being led out of her apartment in handcuffs, face grim but defiant. Dad? Amira stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas. What's happening? Before he could answer, his phone rang again. City Manager Thompson, his voice dripping with fake concern. Elijah, we need to talk. My office, 1 hour. The city manager's office was cold despite the morning heat. Thompson sat behind his massive desk, flanked by 2 council members and the city attorney. This is a courtesy meeting, Thompson began, sliding a folder across the desk. We're giving you a chance to resign gracefully. Mayor Jackson didn't touch the folder. And if I refuse? Thompson clicked a remote. A video played on the wall screen. Grainy footage showing someone who looked like Amira spray painting police cars. Amazing what technology can do these days. Of course, this footage is clearly fake, but the public might not see it that way. You're threatening my daughter? Elijah's voice was deadly quiet. We're offering you a dignified exit, Councilwoman Peters said smoothly. Full pension, glowing recommendations. The alternative could be messy. Where's the real footage? Elijah demanded. The evidence Officer Mendez provided? Thompson spread his hands innocently. What footage? Our IT department has no record of any unauthorized backups. And now, sadly, we can't ask Officer Mendez about these allegations. You killed him. The words hung in the air. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Mayor, the city attorney warned. Officer Mendez's death was clearly self-inflicted. The medical examiner's report will confirm it. You have 24 hours to announce your resignation, Thompson said. Cite personal reasons, health concerns, whatever you prefer. After that, he gestured at the fake video still frozen on the screen. Elijah stood slowly. You know what your mistake is? You think because you have power, you have control. But there's something stronger than power. He walked to the door. The truth. Thompson laughed. Look around, Elijah. Your whistleblower is dead. Your journalist friend is in jail. The evidence is gone. What truth can you possibly prove? My daughter's truth, Elijah said quietly. The truth millions have already seen in her videos. The truth in the eyes of every person who watched her dog die. You can't erase that. Don't be stupid, Elijah, Councilwoman Peters snapped. Think about your daughter's future. I am. He opened the door. That's why I'm not backing down. At home, Amira was waiting. Her eyes were red but fierce. They killed Officer Mendez, didn't they? And they took Ms. Cross away? Elijah sat beside her on the couch. Yes, baby. They're trying to scare us into being quiet. Are you going to resign? No. He took her hand. You know why? Because you taught me something important. When Shadow died, you didn't hide. You didn't stay quiet. You stood up and told your truth, no matter how hard they tried to silence you. Tears rolled down Amira's cheeks. I'm scared, Dad. For you. For Ms. Cross. For all of us. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared, he said softly. It means doing what's right, even when you're terrified. Officer Mendez was brave. Ms. Cross is brave. And you, my beautiful daughter, are the bravest of all. What do we do now? Elijah pulled her close. We keep fighting. We honor Officer Mendez's sacrifice by making sure the truth he died for comes to light. We get Ms. Cross out of jail. And we show this city that justice can't be buried, no matter how deep they try to dig the hole. Like Shadow, Amira whispered. He always kept fighting, no matter what. Exactly like Shadow. Elijah kissed her forehead. They think killing one man and locking up another will end this. But they don't understand. Every person they try to silence only makes our voices stronger. Outside, news vans were already gathering. Phones were ringing. The storm was building. But in that moment, father and daughter sat together, drawing strength from each other, ready to face whatever came next. The evening sun cast long shadows across the community center wall where Shadow's mural had stood proud for the past week. Amira stopped dead in her tracks, her phone slipping from nerveless fingers. The beautiful portrait of Shadow, painted by local artists who'd been moved by her story, was now unrecognizable. Thick black paint had been sprayed across Shadow's face. Cruel words covered the wall. Lying brat and Blue Lives Matter stood out in angry red letters. No! 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 Amira's voice cracked as she stumbled forward. Her trembling hands reached out to touch the still wet paint. Someone had done this recently. Very recently. Mrs. Washington, her elderly neighbor who'd been walking her own dog, hurried over. "Oh, baby girl. I'm so sorry. I just passed by here an hour ago, and it was fine then." Amira's fingers came away black and red. Her vision blurred with tears, but she forced herself to take out her phone again. With shaking hands, she started recording. "This—" Her voice broke. She cleared her throat and started again. "This is what they do when the truth scares them. They try to cover it up. They try to make us ugly." The camera panned across the defaced mural. "But they don't understand. Every time they do something like this, they just prove why we need to keep fighting." Tears streamed down her face, but her voice grew stronger. "They killed Officer Mendez because he was brave enough to tell the truth. They arrested Ms. Cross because she wouldn't stay quiet. Now they're trying to erase Shadow again." She turned the camera on herself, not bothering to wipe away her tears. "But just like that day in my front yard, people are watching. People know the truth." Mrs. Washington stepped into frame, putting an arm around Amira's shoulders. Other neighbors began gathering, their faces angry and concerned. "We're not alone," Amira continued, "and we're not afraid. Shadow taught me that love is stronger than fear. Officer Mendez knew that truth is stronger than lies. So go ahead, paint over our words. Lock up our allies. Try to scare us into silence. But we're still here. We're still standing. And we're not going anywhere." She ended the recording and collapsed into Mrs. Washington's embrace, finally letting herself sob properly. Within minutes, community members were already bringing cleaning supplies, discussing plans to restore the mural, making it even bigger and better. Across town, in a quiet booth at the back of a small diner, Mayor Elijah Jackson sat across from Angela Torres, a federal civil rights attorney known for taking on police corruption cases. "They're escalating," Torres said, reviewing the day's events on her tablet. "Officer Mendez's death, Jada's arrest, the threats against you and Amira. They're desperate." "Which means they're dangerous," Elijah added, his coffee growing cold and forgotten. "But also vulnerable," Torres pointed out. "Desperate people make mistakes. The question is, are you ready for what comes next? Because once we file federal charges, there's no going back. They'll come at you with everything they have." Elijah's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Washington, with a video link to Amira's latest post about the mural. He watched it silently, his heart swelling with pride and aching with worry. "They're already coming at us with everything," he said finally. "My daughter lost her dog. Then she lost her sense of safety. Now they're trying to take her voice. Officer Mendez lost his life. Jada lost her freedom. What else can they take?" "Your career," Torres reminded him. "Your reputation. Your—" "My soul?" Elijah interrupted. "Because that's what staying quiet would cost me. What kind of father would I be if I taught my daughter that comfort is more important than justice?" Torres nodded slowly. "I'll file the paperwork tonight. But we need to move fast. Every hour Jada spends in jail is another hour they have to destroy evidence." "Do it," Elijah said firmly. "And make it loud. I want press releases, press conferences, the works. No more shadows, no more quiet meetings. It's time to bring everything into the light." When Elijah got home, he found Amira sitting on Shadow's old bed in the corner of her room, holding his worn leather collar. "I saw your video," he said softly, sitting beside her. "They're never going to stop, are they?" she asked, running her fingers over Shadow's name tag. "Not on their own," Elijah admitted. "But that's why we don't stop either." He picked up Shadow's favorite tennis ball from the bed. "You know what I remember most about Shadow? how he never gave up during fetch. No matter how far I threw the ball, no matter how tired he always brought it back. Because he was loyal, Amira said quietly. Because he was determined, Elijah corrected. Just like you. Just like Officer Mendez. Just like Ms. Cross. They can paint over walls. They can make up lies. They can try to scare us away. But we keep coming back. We keep bringing the truth back, no matter how far they try to throw it away. Amira leaned against her father's shoulder. I miss him so much, Dad. I know, baby. He wrapped his arm around her. But you're honoring him every day. Every time you speak up, every time you stand strong, you're showing the world exactly who Shadow protected, exactly who they tried to silence, and exactly who they failed to stop. The morning sun had barely cleared the horizon when the steps of City Hall began filling with reporters. Mayor Elijah Jackson stood at the podium, his face set with determination. Camera shutters clicked rapidly as he adjusted the microphone. Good morning, he began, his voice steady and clear. Today, I'm announcing that the United States Department of Justice will be launching a full investigation into the Brayton Police Department, specifically regarding the shooting of Shadow Jackson and the subsequent death of Officer Luis Mendez. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elijah held up a thick folder. I have here documented evidence of systematic corruption within our police department. Evidence tampering, witness intimidation, false arrests, and now, what appears to be a cover-up of a potential murder of a whistleblower officer. In the crowd, Amira watched her father with pride, standing between Mrs. Washington and several other community members who'd come to show support. The arrest of journalist Jada Cross was a desperate attempt to silence the truth, Elijah continued. But that ends today. Ms. Cross has been released, and all charges have been dropped. As if on cue, Jada herself emerged from the courthouse across the street, surrounded by cheering supporters. She walked straight to the crowd of reporters, her head held high. Furthermore, Elijah's voice grew stronger, we've received assistance from Marcus Chen, a digital forensics expert who has successfully recovered the deleted body cam footage from Officer Danley's equipment. The young tech activist stepped forward, laptop in hand. He connected it to the outdoor display screen, and suddenly everyone could see the truth. The recovered footage played clearly. Shadow, wagging his tail, not lunging. Officer Danley, drawing his weapon without provocation. The horrific shot. The aftermath. "Oh, God!" someone in the crowd gasped. Amira closed her eyes, unable to watch. Mrs. Washington squeezed her hand tightly. The footage continued, showing Officer Danley later in the police station, laughing with other officers. Had to shut that kid up somehow. His voice rang out clearly. These people need to learn their place. Elijah let the footage speak for itself before continuing. This isn't just about one dog, or one officer, or one family. This is about a system that believes it can operate above the law. That believes it can silence voices of protest through violence and intimidation. Jada made her way to the podium, and Elijah stepped aside to let her speak. Her time in jail had left dark circles under her eyes, but her voice was strong. For years, I've investigated corruption in Brayton PD, she said. They took my job, threatened my family, and finally tried to lock me up. But thanks to the incredible public support and the thousands of people who demanded my release, I'm standing here today with proof. She held up a USB drive. This contains every article I was working on when they fired me. Every piece of evidence I've gathered since. And now, thanks to Marcus's recovery of the deleted files, we have the complete picture. It will all be published online by noon today. The crowd erupted in cheers. Reporters shouted questions, but Elijah raised his hands for silence. Tomorrow at noon, we're holding a public rally right here on these steps, he announced. We're calling it Shadow's Justice March, because sometimes it takes the death of an innocent to expose the guilt of the powerful. After the press conference, Amira found herself in her father's office with Jada and Marcus. The young tech expert was showing them more recovered footage on his laptop. They tried to wipe everything, Marcus explained, pushing his glasses up his nose. But they didn't know about the cloud backup system. Officer Mendez was smart. He created hidden copies before they got to him. Will it be enough? Amira asked quietly. Jada nodded firmly. More than enough. The federal investigators are already going through everything. And tomorrow, at the rally, we're going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Speaking of the rally, Elijah said, turning to Amira, they want you to speak, but only if you feel ready. Amira thought about Shadow's mural, about Officer Mendez, about all the people who'd stood up and fought back. I'm ready, she said. Shadow's voice was silenced. But mine won't be. That night in her bedroom, Amira sat at her desk working on her speech. Shadow's collar lay beside her notebook, his tags catching the lamplight. She'd been writing and rewriting for hours, wanting every word to be perfect. They thought they could scare us into silence, she practiced aloud. But they didn't understand that every act of intimidation only made us stronger. Every threat only proved why we needed to speak louder. She glanced at Shadow's photo on her wall, remembering his brave heart and loyal spirit. The words flowed easier then, filling page after page with truth and determination. The house was quiet, her father long since asleep, but Amira kept working. Tomorrow would be more than just a rally. It would be a reckoning. And she would be ready. The summer sun beat down on City Hall Plaza as thousands of people packed the space, shoulder to shoulder. Hand-painted signs bobbed above the crowd. Justice for Shadow. End police violence. Truth can't be killed. The energy was electric, a mix of anger and hope that charged the air. Amira stood backstage with her father, peeking through the curtain at the massive crowd. Her heart pounded against her ribs. There are so many people, she whispered. Elijah squeezed her shoulder. They're all here because of you, baby girl. Because you refused to stay quiet. On the temporary stage, massive screens had been set up. Jada Cross stood at the podium, her press badge gleaming in the sunlight. She looked different today. Confident, vindicated, powerful. For years, Jada's voice boomed through the speakers. I've investigated corruption in the Brayton Police Department. Today, thanks to the courage of Officer Luis Mendez, who paid the ultimate price for his honesty, we can finally show you the truth. The screens flickered to life. The crowd fell silent as the recovered body cam footage began to play. The crystal-clear video showed that summer evening from Officer Danley's perspective. Shadow, tail wagging, clearly no threat. Amira's young face, confused and scared. Then the sudden, unnecessary violence. Gasps and cries of outrage rose from the crowd. But Jada wasn't finished. The footage continued, showing Danley later at the station, laughing with other officers about the shooting. His casual cruelty, his racist comments, all captured in high definition. But this isn't just about one incident, Jada continued, changing the screens to display documents, photographs, and more video clips. This is about decades of systematic corruption. Charts and graphs appeared, showing patterns of misconduct complaints mysteriously disappearing. Financial records revealed kickbacks and illegal overtime schemes. Internal emails exposed cover-ups ordered by police leadership. Police Chief Richardson personally ordered the destruction of evidence in 17 cases of officer misconduct, Jada announced, displaying damning emails. Judge Harrison signed off on illegal warrants to intimidate witnesses, and City Council member Peterson helped funnel department funds through fake contractors. The crowd's anger grew with each revelation. But it wasn't chaos, it was controlled fury, the kind that demands change rather than destruction. We have copies of every document, every video, every piece of evidence secured in multiple locations, Jada declared. It's all being turned over to federal investigators today. But more importantly, it's being released to the public. The truth can't be buried anymore. The chant started somewhere in the back of the crowd. "Shadows justice! Shadows justice!" It spread like wildfire until thousands of voices joined together, shaking the windows of City Hall. Amira stepped onto the stage, her father right behind her. The chanting grew louder. She approached the podium, and Jada stepped aside, giving her an encouraging nod. Taking a deep breath, Amira faced the crowd. In her hand, she held Shadow's collar. "My dog Shadow was more than just a pet," she began, her voice clear and strong despite her nerves. "He was my protector, my friend, my family. When Officer Danley killed him, he thought he was teaching me a lesson about power. But the lesson I learned was different." She held up the collar, letting it catch the sunlight. "I learned that the truth is stronger than fear, that justice is stronger than corruption, that love is stronger than hate." The crowd hung on her every word. Even the reporters had stopped taking notes, just listening. "Shadow died protecting me," Amira continued. "Officer Mendez died protecting the truth, but their sacrifices won't be in vain. Because today, we're all standing together, protecting each other, demanding change." Mayor Jackson stepped forward then, standing beside his daughter. "Today," he announced, "I'm signing an executive order creating the Civilian Oversight Board for Police Accountability. Ms. Cross has agreed to serve as its first chairperson." The crowd erupted in cheers. Jada returned to the podium, tears in her eyes, but steel in her voice. "The board will have full investigative powers," she explained. "Body camera footage will be automatically uploaded to secure servers that cannot be tampered with. Complaint investigations will be transparent and public. And most importantly, officers like Danley will never again be allowed to hide behind a badge while abusing their power." As if to punctuate her words, a commotion arose at the edge of the plaza. People turned to see Officer Danley being led away in handcuffs by federal agents, his face twisted in impotent rage. "The Department of Justice has issued multiple indictments," Jada announced, drawing attention back to the stage. "This is just the beginning of real change in Brayton." The crowd's cheers turned to chants again. "Shadow's justice! Shadow's justice!" Amira felt tears rolling down her cheeks. But they weren't tears of sadness anymore. Her father wrapped her in a tight embrace as the chants grew louder, filled with the promise of change and the power of truth finally revealed. Above them, on the massive screens, Shadow's happy face looked down on the crowd, a reminder of the innocent life that had sparked a movement for justice. The steps of City Hall buzzed with frantic energy as officials rushed in and out of the building, phones pressed to their ears. Inside, emergency meetings were being called, while outside, the crowd from the rally continued to celebrate. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like metal trees. Amira sat in her father's office, watching multiple news channels on the wall-mounted TVs. Her story, their story, was everywhere. National anchors spoke gravely about systematic corruption and abuse of power, while showing clips from the rally and the damning body cam footage. "Breaking news," a reporter announced, her voice urgent. Federal prosecutors have formally indicted Officer Mark Danley on multiple charges, including evidence tampering, civil rights violations, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. The door burst open as Jada rushed in, still riding the adrenaline from the rally. "You won't believe what's happening," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. The police chief just announced his resignation. Didn't even wait for the formal investigation, just grabbed his things and left the building. Mayor Jackson looked up from his desk, where he'd been reviewing emergency measures. Any word from the state? Better than that, Jada replied, holding up her phone. The governor's office just released a statement. They're launching a comprehensive investigation into all law enforcement agencies in the county. They're calling it the Shadow Act, new guidelines for police accountability and civilian oversight. Amira felt a warmth in her chest. Shadow's name would now be associated with positive change, not just tragedy. The mayor's assistant poked her head in. "Sir, the press is assembled in the conference room. They're waiting for your statement." Elijah stood, straightening his tie. "Ready for one more fight, baby girl?" Amira nodded, standing beside her father. Together, they walked through the bustling hallways of City Hall. Staff members stopped to applaud as they passed, some with tears in their eyes. The conference room was packed wall-to-wall with reporters. Camera flashes erupted as Elijah and Amira entered. Mayor Jackson approached the podium, his daughter standing proudly at his side. "Today marks a new chapter for Brayton," he began, his voice strong and clear. "The corruption that has plagued our police department for decades has finally been exposed, thanks to the courage of my daughter, the dedication of journalist Jada Cross, and the sacrifice of Officer Luis Mendez." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But exposure isn't enough. We need lasting change. That's why I'm announcing the creation of the Brayton Police Reform Commission. This independent body will oversee the complete restructuring of our police department." Questions erupted from the reporters. Elijah raised his hand for silence. "The commission will implement mandatory de-escalation training, establish clear use of force guidelines, and create a public database of officer complaints. But most importantly, it will work to rebuild trust between law enforcement and our community." A reporter raised her hand. "Mayor Jackson, what do you say to those who claim this is political revenge?" Amira stepped forward before her father could answer. "This isn't about revenge," she said firmly. "This is about making sure no other child has to watch their dog die for no reason. No other family has to lose a loved one because someone with a badge thought they were above the law." Her words silenced the room. Even the veteran reporters looked moved. "My daughter is right," Elijah continued. "This isn't about revenge, it's about justice. And justice isn't political. It's human." More questions followed, but the mayor handled them with calm authority. Yes, federal investigators would have full access to department records. Yes, other officers implicated in corruption would face consequences. Yes, the Civilian Oversight Board would have real power, not just advisory status. As the press conference wound down, Elijah's phone buzzed with a text from the district attorney. "Danley in custody, no bail. Trial date being set." Outside the conference room, city council members who had once pressured Elijah to stay quiet now rushed to align themselves with the reform movement. The same officials who had threatened his career were suddenly eager to be photographed shaking his hand. Hours passed in a blur of meetings, calls, and interviews. The sun had set by the time Elijah and Amira finally headed home, both exhausted but satisfied. In the car, Amira leaned against her father's shoulder. "Do you think Shadow would be proud?" she asked softly. "Baby girl, Shadow was always proud of you," Elijah replied, hugging her close. "And so am I. You didn't just fight for justice. You showed everyone how to fight for what's right." They drove through the streets of Brayton, passing groups of people still celebrating. Some held candles, others carried signs from the rally. The city felt different somehow, lighter, as if a heavy weight had finally been lifted. At home, they found delivery food waiting, ordered by Elijah's staff, who knew they'd be too tired to cook. Father and daughter sat together in the kitchen, sharing quiet smiles between bites. "Tomorrow's going to be another busy day," Elijah said, checking his phone. "The Reform Commission needs to be set up, and there's already talk of other cities wanting to adopt our oversight model." Amira nodded, but her mind was already drifting to her own plans. Her vlog had millions of subscribers now, all eager to help fight for justice in their own communities. Shadow's story had become something bigger than she'd ever imagined. 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity and change. The morning sun cast long shadows across the steps of City Hall as crowds gathered for the official launch of the Brayton Civilian Justice Board. Banners fluttered in the breeze, and the atmosphere hummed with optimism. Amira stood beside her father at the podium, wearing a navy blue dress that made her look older than her 13 years. The past weeks had changed her. There was a new confidence in her posture, a quiet strength that came from fighting and winning. Mayor Jackson addressed the assembled crowd, his voice carrying across the plaza. "Today, we take another step toward real change in Brayton. The Civilian Justice Board isn't just another committee. It's a promise to our community that transparency and accountability aren't just words, they're actions." He gestured to the row of chairs behind him, where Jada Cross sat alongside other community leaders. "These board members represent every corner of our city. They bring different perspectives, different experiences, but they share one goal: making Brayton better for everyone." Jada stepped forward when called, her press credentials now replaced by an official board badge. "This board has real power," she announced. "We'll review police policies, investigate complaints, and ensure that what happened to Shadow never happens to anyone else's loved one again." The crowd applauded as each board member was introduced. Religious leaders, civil rights attorneys, former law enforcement officers who'd spoken out against corruption, and community activists who'd fought for change for years. Then came Amira's turn. She approached the microphone, her heart beating fast, but her voice steady. "As youth liaison to the board, I'll make sure young people's voices are heard. We're not just the future. We're the present. We see what's happening in our neighborhoods, our schools, our parks, and now we have a way to speak up and be taken seriously." The audience cheered, many holding up phones to record her words. Some wore T-shirts with Shadow's picture, others carried signs reading, "Shadow's Justice Lives On." After the ceremony, Amira mingled with community members in the City Hall atrium. People shared their stories, thanked her for her courage, and promised to support the board's work. The division that had once split Brayton seemed to be healing. "You've started something special," Jada said, joining her by the refreshment table. "Look around. People who wouldn't even talk to each other a month ago are now working together." Amira nodded, watching as a former police officer chatted with a civil rights activist, sharing ideas for community outreach programs. "It feels different now," she said, "like people aren't afraid anymore." The board's first meeting was scheduled for that afternoon. They gathered in the newly renovated conference room, its walls adorned with artwork from local students depicting themes of justice and unity. Amira sat at the large oval table, taking notes as the board discussed initiatives for rebuilding trust between police and residents. "We need youth programs," she suggested during the discussion. "Not just sports and stuff, but real conversations between kids and officers. Let them see each other as people first." Her idea was met with enthusiasm, and soon they were planning workshops, community events, and regular forums where residents could voice concerns directly to law enforcement leadership. As the meeting concluded, Jada pulled Amira aside. "There's something waiting for you outside," she said with a mysterious smile. A surprise from the community. Curious, Amira followed Jada down to the plaza. A small crowd had gathered, including many familiar faces from the neighborhood. In the center stood Mrs. Thompson, who had recorded the first video of Shadow's shooting, holding something that made Amira's heart skip a beat. In Mrs. Thompson's arms was a German shepherd puppy, just a few months old, with bright eyes and floppy ears that hadn't quite learned to stand up straight. "We all pitched in," Mrs. Thompson explained, tears in her eyes. "The whole neighborhood. We know he can't replace Shadow, but we thought maybe he could help heal your heart a little." The puppy squirmed eagerly as Amira approached. When Mrs. Thompson placed him in her arms, he immediately tried to lick her face, his tail wagging furiously. "He's already had all his shots and training," someone in the crowd called out. "And the vet says he's got the sweetest temperament." Amira hugged the puppy close, feeling his warm, solid weight against her chest. He reminded her of Shadow as a puppy. The same curious eyes, the same gentle spirit, but he was his own dog, with his own personality waiting to emerge. "What are you going to name him?" Mayor Jackson asked, watching his daughter with pride. Amira didn't hesitate. "Truth," she said firmly, "because that's what Shadow helped us find, and what this little guy will help us keep fighting for." The crowd murmured approvingly as Truth barked, as if agreeing with his new name. He settled comfortably in Amira's arms, already seeming to know he was home. Several days had passed since Truth joined the Jackson family. The morning sun painted the sidewalks of East Brayton in warm golden light, as Amira walked her new companion through familiar streets. Truth trotted beside her, his leash loose and relaxed, already showing the results of his training. "Morning, Amira," called Mrs. Rodriguez from her porch, watering her flowers. "How's our neighborhood's favorite watchdog doing?" "He's learning fast," Amira replied, smiling as Truth sat politely at the fence. "Want to give him a treat? He's practicing his manners." Mrs. Rodriguez produced a dog biscuit from her pocket. Many neighbors now kept them handy for Truth's daily walks. The puppy took it gently, tail wagging. "You're looking strong, girl," Mrs. Rodriguez said softly. "It does my heart good to see you walking these streets again." Amira nodded, understanding the deeper meaning. For weeks after Shadow's death, she'd avoided this route, the memories too painful. Now, with Truth beside her, she was reclaiming her neighborhood one step at a time. Back home in her room, Amira set up her vlogging equipment, the professional microphone and lighting kit that supporters had sent her after Shadow's Justice went viral. Truth settled at her feet, gnawing contentedly on his favorite chew toy. "Hey everyone," she began, her voice clear and confident. "Today's vlog is different. I want to talk about what these past few weeks have taught me about fighting for what's right." She paused, gathering her thoughts. The red recording light blinked steadily. "When Shadow was killed, I felt like my whole world had been destroyed. The police tried to make us feel powerless. They thought they could just shoot a 13-year-old girl's dog and get away with it, like they'd gotten away with so much before." Truth looked up at her voice, ears perking forward. Amira reached down to scratch behind his ears before continuing. "But here's what I learned. They were wrong about being powerless. Every time they tried to silence us, we got louder. When they erased videos, more people started recording. When they spread lies, we spread truth. And when they threatened us, we stood together." She held up her phone, showing the screen to her camera. "Look at these messages I get every day now. Kids from all over the country telling me how they're starting their own community watch programs, teenagers organizing civilian review boards in their cities, people learning their rights and teaching others." The messages scrolled past, hundreds of them from places she'd never visited, each one sharing a story of inspiration and change. That's the real power of Shadow's Justice. It wasn't just about my dog, or even just about police reform. It was about learning that when we stand up together, we can make real change happen. Truth padded over to her desk, resting his chin on her knee. Amira smiled, remembering how Shadow used to do the same thing when she was upset. Some people ask me if I'm still angry about what happened. The truth is, yes, part of me will always be angry that Shadow died like that. But I've learned that anger can be fuel for change. It doesn't have to burn you up inside. You can use it to light the way forward. She gestured to the board member badge sitting on her desk. Look what we've accomplished already. The Civilian Justice Board is reviewing every police policy. Officers are getting new training. Community members are involved in decisions about public safety. And it's not just here. Other cities are using Brayton as a model for their own reforms. Truth barked softly, making Amira laugh. Even Truth here is part of the change. He's not just my pet. He's a symbol of healing for our whole neighborhood. People stop us on our walks to share their stories, to talk about their hopes for the community. He's helping build bridges, one paw at a time. She leaned forward slightly, her expression serious but hopeful. To everyone watching this who's facing their own battles for justice, don't let anyone tell you you're too young, too inexperienced, or too powerless to make a difference. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And when you stand up for what's right, you'll find you're never standing alone. Truth had flopped onto his back now, paws waving in the air, completely at ease. Amira couldn't help but smile at his antics. Someone wise told me that justice isn't just about punishing wrong, it's about making things right. That's what we're doing here in Brayton. We're not just looking back at what happened to Shadow. We're looking forward, building something better for everyone. She reached down to rub Truth's belly, her voice growing softer but no less determined. Every morning when I walk Truth through our neighborhood, I see the changes. I see former enemies becoming friends. I see people who used to look away now looking out for each other. I see hope growing where fear used to live. Truth rolled over and sat up, placing his paw on her knee as if emphasizing her words. Amira scratched under his chin, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her hand. So keep fighting your battles, whatever they may be. Keep speaking your truth. Keep believing in justice. Because change is possible. I'm living proof of that. And, together, we can make sure that Shadow's justice continues to grow and spread, making our world a little bit better, one community at a time. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.